Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Okay, so imagine this, right? You're in a remote area, maybe hiking or working outdoors, and suddenly you get bitten by a venomous snake.
Oh, wow.
It's a terrifying scenario. And what makes it even worse is knowing that the nearest hospital is hours away.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a nightmare scenario for sure.
But what if there was a simple pill you could take right there in the field? Something that could potentially buy you crucial time until you could reach medical help.
Now, that would be a game changer, wouldn't it?
Well, it turns out that this might not be science fiction anymore.
Hmm.
We're going to dive into some really fascinating research today, exploring the potential of a drug called Unithiol as an oral treatment for snakebite envenoming.
I'm excited to learn more.
You sent over some incredibly interesting stuff on this topic. A health news article from Medical Express really caught my eye. And then, of course, we have the full scientific paper published in eBiomedicine to really get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, we'll pull from both of those sources today.
Our mission is to unpack all of this and really figure out what it could mean for the future of snakebite treatment.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
So first things first, why is this research even necessary, right? What's the problem we're trying to solve here?
Well, snakebite envenoming is a huge global health issue. We're talking about over 94,000 deaths every single year.
Wow, that's a staggering number.
It is. And what makes it even more tragic is that it disproportionately affects rural communities in sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Asia.
Right, places where access to health care can be a real challenge.
Exactly.
And we know that the current treatments, primarily antivenoms, they can be life-saving, but they also come with some pretty significant limitations.
You're absolutely right. Antivenoms can be really expensive to produce and get to where they're needed. And there's also the risk of serious side effects in some cases.
Yeah, I have heard about that.
But I'd say probably the biggest obstacle is that antivenoms need to be given intravenously. So that means a trip to a hospital or a clinic, which, as we've said, isn't always readily available.
And that delay in treatment can have really dire consequences.
Yeah.
So this new research is looking at a completely different way to treat snake bites, right? A pill you could take.
Yes. Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, researchers have been investigating this drug called Unithiol. It's already approved for treating heavy metal poisoning, but it also has this potential to neutralize the harmful effects of snake venom metalloproteinases.
Snake venom metal, say that 5 times fast.
Right.
But seriously, can we break that down a bit? What are those exactly?
Sure. So basically, these metalloproteinases are like key toxins found in the venom of many snakes, particularly vipers, and they rely on zinc to do their damage.
And these are the nasty components that cause the really serious tissue damage and bleeding we see in snakebite victims.
Exactly. They're the real troublemakers.
Okay, so the idea is that Unithiol, this existing drug, can actually neutralize these harmful toxins.
Precisely. And to figure out if this was even possible, and safe researchers conducted a phase 1 clinical trial.
That makes sense. So tell us more about this trial. What was the main purpose?
Well, the primary goal was to evaluate the safety and tolerability of Unithiol when taken orally at different doses.
So basically making sure it wasn't going to cause any major problems.
Right, exactly. And they also wanted to understand how the drug is processed by the body, how it gets absorbed, distributed, metabolized, and eliminated all of that, which is known as pharmacokinetics.
Gotcha. The basic how it works in the body stuff.
Yeah.
And where did this trial take place?
It was conducted at the Kenya Medical Research Institute Wellcome Trust Research Program in Kilifi County, Kenya.
Okay. And why was that location chosen?
Well, Kilifi County is a region where snake bites are a real problem, so it made sense to conduct the study in a place where it could potentially have the most impact.
Makes sense. So how many people participated in this trial?
64 healthy adult volunteers. The median age was 30 years old.
Okay. And can you walk us through the study design?
Sure. It was what we call an open-label phase 1 dose escalation trial. Open label just means that both the researchers and the participants knew what they were getting, and dose escalation means they started with low doses of Unithiol and gradually increased them to see how much the body could handle safely.
Okay.
They tested a range of oral dosing regimens, single doses, multiple doses over a 24-hour period. And for comparison, they also gave single intravenous doses.
Wow. So they were really thorough in testing out different ways of administering the drug.
Absolutely.
What were the researchers looking for specifically during the trial?
They were closely monitoring the participants for any adverse events or side effects, things like clinical assessments, lab tests, and electrocardiograms to make sure their hearts were doing okay.
Okay.
And they also carefully measured the levels of Unithiol in the blood at various time points using a technique called high-performance liquid chromatography mass spectrometry. It's a mouthful, but it's a very precise method for measuring drug concentrations.
So a lot of careful observation and data collection.
Exactly.
So after all of that, what were the main takeaways? What did the results show?
Well, the great news is that Unithiol was found to be safe and well tolerated at all the doses they tested, both oral and intravenous.
Wow, that's really encouraging.
It is. They didn't observe any serious adverse events or any dose-limiting toxicities.
So no major red flags safety-wise?
Nope, not at all.
Were there any minor side effects at all?
There were some mild to moderate side effects reported, things like abdominal pain, decreased appetite, and some skin reactions.
Okay, so nothing too serious.
Right, and most of these side effects resolved on their own without any specific treatment.
That's good to hear. And what about how the drug was absorbed and distributed in the body?
Well, they found that Unithiol was absorbed into the bloodstream quite rapidly after oral administration, and higher doses did lead to higher concentrations of the drug in the blood.
That makes sense.
One particular multiple-dose regimen they tested, giving a large initial dose followed by smaller doses at 6 and 24 hours, actually achieved blood levels comparable to intravenous administration within the first few hours.
Oh, wow. So taking it as a pill could potentially be just as effective as an injection, at least initially.
That's what the early data suggests, and this is where things start to get really exciting when we think about the potential implications for treating snake bites in the real world.
Right, because if it's safe, effective, and can be given orally, that opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Exactly. Imagine being able to give this treatment in remote clinics, or even as first aid right after a bite that could drastically reduce delays in treatment.
And we know that time is of the essence when it comes to snake bites.
Absolutely.
So essentially, Unithiol could be a way to buy victims precious time to get to more definitive care.
Yes, that's the hope. It might not be a cure-all, but it could help prevent or reduce the severity of those immediate life-threatening effects like tissue damage and bleeding.
Giving people a better chance of survival and recovery.
Exactly.
And I think this research really highlights the urgent need for new and improved snakebite treatments.
You're right. Dr. Michael Abrianis, who led the study, actually pointed out that the antivenoms we use today are based on principles that are over 100 years old.
Wow, I didn't realize they were that outdated.
Yeah, so there's definitely room for innovation in this field.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that really intrigued me about this research was the idea that Unithiol might have what they called pan-species activity. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. So unlike many antivenoms that are designed to work against specific snake species, Unithiol targets a component that's common to the venom of a wide range of snakes, specifically the zinc in those metalloproteinases toxins.
So it could potentially be effective against bites from a variety of snakes.
Yes, exactly, including many vipers found across Asia, Africa, and the Americas.
That's incredible. So you wouldn't necessarily need to know what kind of snake bit you to get some level of protection.
Right, which is a huge advantage, especially in situations where identifying the snake is difficult or impossible.
And this aligns with the goals of organizations like the World Health Organization, right?
It does. The WHO has set a target to halve the number of deaths and disabilities from snake bites by 2030, and developing safe, affordable, and easy-to-administer treatments like oral Unithiol is definitely a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. It has the potential to really change the game when it comes to snakebite treatment and outcomes.
Agree.
Of course, with any early-stage research, we have to acknowledge that there are still limitations and questions that need to be addressed.
Of course.
So what are some of the key limitations of this particular study?
Well, first and foremost, this was a phase 1 trial, so the main focus was safety and pharmacokinetics in healthy volunteers. It didn't actually assess whether Unithiol is effective in treating actual snakebite envenoming.
Right, so we don't know for sure if it actually works in a real-world scenario yet.
Not yet. That's what phase 2 trials will need to determine, and those will involve patients who have actually been bitten by venomous snakes.
And this initial study involved a relatively small number of participants, right?
That's right, only 64. So while the safety data is promising, we'll need larger studies with more diverse groups of people to confirm those findings.
And this study was done on healthy volunteers. So could there be differences in how the drug behaves in someone who's actually been envenomed?
That's a good point. The venom itself can cause a lot of physiological changes that might affect how the body processes the drug.
So that's something else to consider.
Yeah. And another thing to note is that the study measured total unithiol in the plasma, which includes both the active form of the drug and potentially inactive oxidized forms.
So further research will be needed to tease apart the roles of those different forms.
Right. And one of the initial goals of the study was to develop a method for directly measuring how well unithiol was inhibiting venom activity in blood samples.
Oh, so they wanted to see how effectively it was neutralizing the toxins.
Exactly, but they weren't able to fully establish that method during this phase, so that's something they'll need to refine in future research.
So even though this initial safety data is really promising, there's still a lot more work to be done.
Absolutely. This is just the first step in a long research journey.
It is, and it's always interesting to hear what the experts involved in the study have to say.
Hmm.
So what were some of the key takeaways from their perspective?
Well, Dr. Abuyani stressed the need to move beyond those outdated principles of snakebite treatment, and he expressed a lot of optimism that unithiol could represent a significant step forward.
A new era of snakebite treatment.
Hopefully. And Professor Nicholas Casewell, a leading expert in snakebite research at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, emphasized the challenge of getting timely treatment to victims in remote areas, and he's hopeful that unithiol could allow for treatment to begin within minutes of a bite.
Wow, that would be incredible.
It would. He was careful to clarify that it's not a cure on its own, but it could be that crucial first intervention to prevent those worst effects.
By those precious minutes or even hours.
Exactly.
And it sounds like the researchers are eager to move on to those phase 2 trials to see how effective the drug actually is in real-world snakebite situations.
They are. Based on the safety and pharmacokinetic data they've gathered so far, they feel confident moving forward to test its clinical efficacy in snakebite patients.
Well, it's been really fascinating to delve into this research with you today. This idea of an oral snakebite treatment is so incredibly promising, and it could potentially save countless lives and reduce suffering in communities that are most affected by this issue.
I agree. It's a really exciting development, and it makes you wonder what other potential treatments are out there waiting to be discovered.
Right. It really highlights the power of scientific research and innovation.
It does.
So for our listeners out there who are interested in learning more or maybe even getting involved in supporting this kind of research, where can they go for more information?
I encourage everyone to check out the work being done by organizations like the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine and the World Health Organization. They're both doing some really amazing work to combat snakebite and venoming.
Great resources, and we'll be sure to include links to those in the show notes. You know, as we wrap up today, I'm struck by this idea that sometimes solutions to complex problems can be found in unexpected places. An existing drug for heavy metal poisoning might hold the key to revolutionizing how we treat snake bites.
That's science for you, always full of surprises.
And it's a reminder that we should never underestimate the power of curiosity and continued exploration.
Absolutely well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, stay curious, keep learning, and let's keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in science and medicine.
Couldn't agree more.
Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.